Hi guys, welcome for another weekly review. This week I didn't really follow my plan. I overtraded, I traded at work, a lot of costly mistakes, and it's sadly a bad week coming back from my 3 week break. One main thing that costed me a lot is that I've been holding on to trades, and it's usually not the way I do trade. Try to play the higher time frame. I'm usually in and out in small time frames. I did a couple mistakes there as well. I've left profit on the table, went back to break even. I didn't close trades when I could have exited at entry. Let's go back through this week. Try to make it quick, but terrible week. Way too many trades as well. All right, so to start to explain, we've been in this formation for a while now, and as a repeat of this one that happened here, I was sort of expecting the same thing. We've had a drop and a retest by the end of the previous week, and then here on the new week opening had a drop on the Sunday, and it was 3 levels up into Wednesday, which is midweek reversal, into a drop to take those lows here. A little bit similar from that setup here, but this one played on a 4 hour time frame. So you had a retest on the Friday, range over the weekend, and another retest on the Monday, and a dump taking this low. When this happened here, I wasn't trading. These were the 3 weeks I was not trading, that I took a break. I was expecting price to drop, retest, and have this drop here, but price can tell you otherwise. And then when it started reclaiming all these EMAs, I'm like, okay, this is probably not happening. Then we took those highs, we dropped, we had this round top, and what I was expecting coming off start of the week was at some point to get maybe a second retest lower, or at best take those highs before dumping lower. Because I was working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week, I wasn't really paying attention to anything at all. I just had an alert to those highs because I knew that if those highs were taken and we had a clear sweep, it was probably be good for me to open a high time frame trade. And I was really only expecting this to happen by Wednesday, but we had this stop right on Monday straight away. And so that brought my attention to the charts when we took those high. I don't remember exactly where my trade was, but somewhere along those lines, I did open this trade and I played the targeting those low all the way down here. So that's the first background trade I took while at work, and this was good. This was a good trade to take because it didn't require a lot of my attention, and I didn't have to have a perfect entry, and it was just a trade that could work out in the background. We ended up forming an M, so wasn't really too bothered about this retraced. We started dropping. I'm okay, and then I had an alert. I didn't want to go break even on this one from that point because we were still respecting this demand. This area was likely going to be retested before getting lower again. And so I had an alert in here. We had this first retest. It was actually this candle here. And when this happened, we started moving lower, and I moved my stop to here because I didn't want price to go higher than here because my M retest would have been invalidated. So I ended up getting out of this trade here at half a risk. So all this is good. Really happy about this trade and the trade management. There was no issues with it. And once we had all these 4 hour candles, plus it was at the time, this was Monday's high. So sweep of Monday's high. I did re-enter this trade. It was a great call. And so far, I didn't take any profits. But over the weekend here, I was expecting this drop. But this drop to keep bleeding like it did in the past on the previous setup. And this liquidity grab and this bounce so far, it's not really following the plan I had. We still can go lower, but for now, for me, this is a sweep. We're retesting this demand now, and there's possibility we go higher. So on the higher time frames, it is a possibility that we will not take the low. I think we will, but price action is not bleeding as it was bleeding here. See how this is bleeding a lot. This is bleeding. Like from this retest here, just bled through that low. So I'm just monitoring this trade. We'll see how it ends up, if I end up getting out of it. But yeah, Tuesday morning here, and I was on a break at work right here. I looked at my chart, and this setup was just so good to not take. We had price rising 15-minute order block that started the break of market structure, while I was already bearish on this setup on Bitcoin that we could go lower quite quick. Wasn't specifically expecting us to go back up, create an M and drop. I was really thinking that we could drop quite fast on the Asia session on Tuesday. So for me here on Ethereum, it was a no-brainer. We had the break of market structure, resistance, support that turns into a resistance. Break structure, people would put all their stop loss here. And when you have a liquidity grab like this, it's just beautiful, especially after US making a high, the gap making a lower high, and Asia just expect continuation lower. The mistake, so this entry here was perfect. I was on my phone, but I was at work and I just couldn't deny the trade. And my mindset going with this trade was, I've got my high time frame trade here on Bitcoin. Maybe I can get a lower time frame trade that's gonna turn out to be a very high risk to reward if I can drag it all the way down to that low like a month ago as well. So I enter this trade, moves down, and then I'm free here while at work, but then all this I can't really monitor anymore because I'm working. I checked on my phone, I had this little sweep here, we were going lower, and as we were going lower, I'm like, okay, my trade, I'm at break even, I'm safe, I'm expecting price to go lower anyway. And price ended up just reversing and stopping me out at break even here. That's the thing, because I decided to hold a trade for high time frame possibility of a high risk to reward, I ended up getting a break even, and actually costed me about $80 in fees, because crypto, when you have a small stop loss like this, costs an arm in fees. So $80 of fees for a risk of $500. But at this point where we had this low, didn't get into the wick of that candle, and here again I get a candle that takes this one up as well, probably just, and closes here. I would, if I was at the chart the way I usually trade, I would have closed my trade here, because this trade is a 2 or 3 hour trade. Perfect. It's beautiful. This is the way I trade usually. Aim for 2 or 3 hour, even if it's just 2, I'll take it, get out, and then here in half an hour or so, an hour, you're done. You can close the laptop and come back later. So this was the first costly mistake. I really could have banked some money here, and if I get 2 or 3 R, I can't even finish my week, because this is my goal for the week. 2 or 3 R for a week, if I can do this every week, would be ideal. And then so from this point, when this trade was done, I just got a bit eager to just get back into something. I realized I missed that profit, and I actually had suffered a little loss because of the fees. And here, end of my day, still think we're gonna go lower, and this hasn't happened yet on Bitcoin. You do have your 3 drops on the 5 minute, get a W formation, and you get that rise 1 that takes all this liquidity, actually mine as well, and then retraces back all the way down, and so it's a failed W for me, and it's a really good setup that I love. So I re-enter this trade here, same, playing the high time frame, and it just had no continuation. And what I failed to see is that we didn't go back into those trapped traders area. We actually started reclaiming all the EMAs, and my 2-hour mark here, where I usually close my trade, price was just slowly moving up, and I could have closed it, but yeah, especially end of session, changeover between Asia and UK, I could have exited here, but I didn't, and I got a full stop loss. One thing I want to add to this trade as well is I do not trade trend lines, but when I got a trend line like this, I know this is liquidity building, and there's a high likelihood that at least we're going to take some of all this liquidity before getting lower. So when this trade presented, I was already aware that we had this trend line, and I know it was risky, but sometimes you do get a trend line and then we just keep going. So, you can't stop yourself from taking a trade just because, there's a possibility that we do a sweep. We don't do the sweep. Not too pissed off about this trade, really. So these 2 first trades, all the trades I talked about so far for the week, Not really unhappy about it. The main reason is this one. Tried to play higher time frame when I could have closed the 2 or 3R. But yeah, that's when I entered this trade, my plan was to hold for the long term. It's not like I changed my plan from the get-go. Third trade on the small time frame. This one, not an ideal setup that I would usually take, but the liquidity was taken off that trend line. We had created an M formation, and I was still thinking that we were gonna get a retest, fair value gap on a higher time frame. You have this liquidity building up. Usually if US trends for the whole session, an hour to 2 hours before the end of the session, usually you get a retrace. And this is what actually happened. It was actually quite sharp, probably induced a lot of people to go long, take the liquidity, get into this gap, and on the 5 minute I had 2 inverted hammers, and I got in this trade, thinking that my bias to go short was still valid, and that we were just going to probably do something like this through the gap in Asia. Price didn't go anywhere and just ended up stopping me out up there. And because this previous trade on Bitcoin as well, we were still in that M formation that happened on a 4 hour. We were still here, so for me was still like a likelihood, I think we took those highs just slightly, that we were gonna keep going lower. This was a retest of the center peak. Like, I was bearish here, so I thought Ethereum, a bit of a bigger retrace, take that liquidity just to go lower. Same on Bitcoin. What I did fail to see actually is that we had a decent breaker here, retest. So there's no way to be keep being bearish. And as this trade was playing out as well, it's over the dead gap, so it's not, I would have not taken a trade here, but at least it was just to prove that I could have exited this one, maybe at a better price than my stop loss. Yeah, because this was a clean retest here. So going further into the week, we actually arrive at Wednesday and that expected reversal. There is this M formation here. I'm looking at a trade in here, and I just hate entering in those boardrooms. You really have to go lower into time frames. If you go back down to the 2 minute, there is a liquidity sweep, and then usually when you get a boardroom, it does like this. If you have a sweep better, and then you'd have around sort of a lower high that's just weak, and then that's usually when it drops. I try to get in a trade in there, but you have to be super accurate, and sometimes your price might do this, and it keeps going into that boardroom. So I really hate those boardrooms. Sometimes you don't have the liquidity sweep as well. It will just do this and fade slowly and die. I just say guessing my entry when price is just range bound like this and then just drops at some point. But anyway, did not take this trade here. Went to bed right after, and then next day the same thing happened. So this is my 4 hour time frame re-entry on Bitcoin. So at this point I was expecting lower. Let me go to the 2 minute. It's gonna be way better. You're gonna be able to see what I'm trying to explain. See here, for example, this is the setup I was talking about in US. I was waiting for a sign to go short here. We've had this sweep, retraced, and we were holding, and then that's why it's difficult, because here you could have this low high, it drops, you're like, oh, that's it, and it comes back up, and you don't know what price does in this range. It might keep going up. I come in Asia and I have this eternal setup again of the high in US, the high in the dead gap zone, the lower high at Asia open. I'm just looking at this price section. I'm trying to find my entry. I just don't really find anything convincing to get into any short. And it's always easy after the fact to say, oh, there's a railroad track here and then an inverted hammer, and then that was your entry. Yeah, because you know that this happened. One good thing to do is open your chart, put it there, and think like, would have had open a trade at this point, and then you can just go candle by candle. Would I have open a trade here? See, it's like, oh, maybe it's probably a trade. Oh, press retrace, goes back up. It's really difficult to. There's no setup in here. It's just a boardroom entry waiting for a drop, and I really hate those entries. And then really I was accumulating the non-entry in the boardrooms. Didn't enter there, didn't enter there. And this one I was entering, but way too late. I mean, just unlucky, really. So similar, shitty, really shitty boardroom, right? Nothing special. You've got a big week, price doesn't go back, doesn't fill the whole week, respects 50%, gets back above the EMAs. You have a sweep here, but here price is sort of reclaiming them as well. I had the same thing on Ethereum where we have that range, grab the liquidity, liquidity grab before potential drop. So I was aware of price action here. And when this lower high happened, like I explained, right here, I was feeling the details to enter the position. So, entry, stop loss, whatever. And just before I pressed sell, I put my eyes back on the chart. And lucky I did because price was already down there. Would have gotten filled here with a massive size because my stop loss was only this. The size was way bigger than if I was opening a trade with my stop loss here and my entry here. So I would have been oversized, entering way down there. So lucky I didn't press sell before looking back at the chart. And this it dumped so quick. I didn't get a chance. So I almost got into this setup, but I did not. Missed all these. Missed that one. That's the one I went really fast. Because I had my 3 drops, we tapped into an order block here. I know I was expecting a cascade of like falling price action, but because this one was so fast, I was thinking there was potential to rebalance a part of that move to that low, retest that 15-minute 50 EMA before going lower. I'll go back down to the 5-minute. So just to explain this setup a little bit better, I had my breaker, retested, moved back above it, so with speed. That's what you want with a breaker, with speed. Came here, retested, I had this week, started to take those lows, respected this demand down here. I enter my trade here, and I expect really like a move up quite fast before retracing. And price just did not do it, ended up going lower and lower. And when this other week happened, I've put my stop there because price is just showing no strength at all. I don't want to be part of this position anymore. I don't want to close it now, but I'll just raise my stop a little bit higher to that point. And that's what I did, and just price ended up going to my stop loss higher. And like I said, it was weak. Because it could not go back higher straight away. Yeah, just weakness and dive down. And so took another loss here. Then came Friday, still seeing the lower highs and the lower highs. There was once again a trend line in here, so this was a risky entry, but because of the downfall price action I'm expecting, I do enter a trade here. No crazy setup, really not on tilt, but just eager to get into a trade, especially after taking all these losses from the from the start of the week, when price is just dropping the way I want it to drop. So I entered this trade, price retraced, reclaimed that 50, and at this point that's why I closed. Manually closed this trade. I realized it might be sort of a breaker that went a bit lower. I'm not so keen. If I have a breaker and price goes lower before retesting, for me that's weakness. I want it to tap into it before going higher. So this was a bit of weakness, but I'm thinking, okay, it's Friday, maybe we are going to see a little retrace today before we drop on the weekend. I do enter a trade here, especially when ETH's got a slow grinding price action. That's when sometimes it pops. Enter this trade here, retest the EMA. I realize we're creating an M reset. So the setup I trade is 1, 2, 3 levels. Usually get W and it keeps going. But if you get an M here, it's just a reset for 3 more levels. So I realize we've got this M formation and we lose that 5-minute 50, get below those lows, and I close this trade as well before it hits my stop loss. Got chopped into the Friday price action. Friday is really not an ideal day to take a trade. Got trapped into this chop and lost 1 hour across those 2 trades. So not ideal again, and it's just accumulating losses for the week. And so that's at this point that I see my M reset. Price moves down. I'm like, I don't want to be chopped into smaller time frame trades. Let me enter this, and we'll see if I get my 3 levels down as a continuation and have the same target on this trade as my Bitcoin one that I had taken on a 4 hour. I took the Ethereum way later, so around here. And same, you could say there's all these lower highs and possibility that we take them later. This is this area on Bitcoin too. But Bitcoin one is safe and the Ethereum one was. I knew it was a possibility that would come and take those highs, and this is what just happened now so far. So this trade actually, I wanted to go break even, and I should have, because the way I see things is, see for example here, if I get taken a break even, but then price shows me an M or something, I can still re-enter here. I'm not risking my risk here, and it's not like I can't re-enter when if I'm available at the charts when price hit that level. So one more terrible week, not the way I wanted to play it at all. I was planning on not trading at work. I ended up trading just because price went to my area of interest before I finished work, and then I got involved in the market, and it was just a snowball effect of just getting involved way too much with the market instead of stepping back and relaxing and entering really only on good setups. It was a bunch of little paper cuts that just cost me a big amount of money for the week and put me into a drawdown. Once again, I do this for me first. I just put it out there because it does help me. If it helps people to see other people struggling and that are at the same stage of trading that I am, then it's great. I just want to be this guy that it's just honest about the whole journey, and I never see it, so I want to be that person. This is the not pretty side of trading, and that's what it is. And you have to go through this. Everybody's going through all these struggles, not respecting the rules, tilting, being subject to emotions. It's a very difficult endeavor to undertake. But yeah, I put my thoughts out there. I put my trades. I'm far from a guru. I'm not pretending to tell you what to do or how to do things. I'm not at that stage. And even if I was, I don't think I would. I'm just showing what I do and what I go through, and that's it. So yeah, feel free to put your intake, comment, critique, whatever. Have a nice one. See you next week.